to the users through a set of OSM integrations that consist of JOSM plugin, ID integration that we're working on, and a specialized editing desktop application that we're also working on that I'm hoping to show a little bit. And then of course it goes into OSM. So that's it in a nutshell. And let's talk about some of those components a little bit more. So the apps are Android and iOS. For Android, we have the availabilities through the Play and App stores, but also for Android, we can do we offer an APK download, and of course, you can compile the whole thing yourself if you're so inclined. If you just download the source code and do it. This is some overview of some of the screens. They look pretty similar on each platform. There are slight differences. So some features get on Android first, some features get on iOS first. We're a pretty rapid development cycle where we publish new versions every 2 weeks or so right now. And some things make it onto Android first, and some things make it onto iOS first. So it depends. But we're definitely not having a preference for one platform over the other. They're both equally well developed and tested. So you see here to the left is a view of like a list of captures that are already existing, and to the right in the location, and to the right you see an overview of one trip with the trace on the top, and then you can scroll through. You can scrub through the images in the bottom. It actually goes pretty fast. If you want to review a sequence on the phone, you can just scrub through that, and then it will show almost like a video. It will show the images. I had a nice animation of that, but I don't think it made it into the PDF. That would have been this one here. But the slides are all online. I'll share the link later. You can review it in its full glory there. So this is the recording stuff. So you can switch between the camera view as the main view and the map view as the main view. Actually, what's not shown here and what we since implemented, if you have the map view, you can also see where we already have coverage. So if you want to take a left to go into a street where there's no coverage yet, then you can do that pretty easy by looking at the map. It shows a little bit of metrics of the current trip, how many pictures you've captured, how many megabytes that has been taking up so far, and then how many kilometers or miles. We actually let you switch between those, and I love that because I always get confused as a European American between miles and kilometers, and I want to switch from time to time. Uploading. This happens automatically if you set it to do so, and you come within Wi-Fi range. It will start uploading your finished trips, and if you want to use mobile data, you can even do that, but most people are on limited data plans, so they wouldn't want to do that probably. So that's why we offer it on Wi-Fi only by default. And then there's a little profile screen. This is kind of a condensed version of what's on the website. That shows your current ranking and your weekly ranking. This is currently global. We have plans to make that a little more localized also. And then if you scroll down, you would see an overview of your recent captures. So this is also supposed to be funny and animated. But like who of you have seen the HBO show Silicon Valley? They're all about like creating this next generation compression platform, and we're pretty proud of our achievement that we think is pretty Pied Piperish, that we were able to do compress an 8 megapixel image into to smaller than 1 megabyte by doing MP4 video compression on the device. So we actually uploaded the sequence as a video, and then it gets unwinded, uncompressed into images again on the server side. So it's really smooth upload and it's very fast. Weren't you supposed to be talking about this? When I get going, man. Here, why don't you take this?
It's all good, man. So yeah, I'm pretty excited about the video compression. We worked a lot on that. So we got to less than half of individual JPEGs without any loss of quality. So it's pretty cool. One other thing that we did that is exciting for me is, So this is what you see when you open the website or the app. So this is one polyline for each street segment that was mapped. And what this means is that we aggregate every GPS trace that we receive and match it to OSM road network. So instead of this is, I think you're familiar with this kind of setup. So you see every GPS trace on the map, and it kind of jumps around and does crazy stuff, and it doesn't look that good. You end up with this, so it's much cleaner, and you see exactly what was mapped so far. So when you just click on a specific location, only then you'll see all the pictures there, all the tracks or the sequences that were recorded in that area. So as you see, all these 4 images on the bottom, you can scroll around through them. These were all taken by different people at the same location. So this is quite cool. Yeah, I'll let Martijn talk a little bit about the computer vision thing.
Yeah, I wanted to go back before I do that. So what's nice about this is that we actually match the trips to OSM ways internally. So what that gives us is that every OSM way is already attached on our side, is already linked to a set of images that was taken on that trip. And say, okay, we have this many pictures and they're of this age, so you can attach, like you can quickly retrieve images that are attached to a specific OSM way. So there's no need to kind of guess. So you can do that. You can do that programmatically as well if you want. We'll get into the API stuff later, but that's something that is that's core to a platform, and one of those things that really defines the integration with OSM. Is that everything is basically attached to OSM ways natively already. But yeah, so we've spent quite a bit of time on computer vision and detecting signs. This is still very much a work in progress. Also, we're continuing to work on this. Right now we have speed sign detection for the US and the EU. That's fully working. We're working on, so the next step, and I think it's a pretty big one, would be to work on the signposts, that, the big overhead things on freeways, that not only detecting them, but in the end also even interpreting what they say. And if anyone has ever mapped those destination signs or those destination tags in OSM, you know how complex those can get, and we're trying to figure out if we can kind of semi-automate part of that process by detecting what's on the signs. That's kind of tough, but we're working through that. Also lane detection, so how many lanes, lane configuration. That's important to us at least as well. But if you have suggestions on what we should be detecting, we're all ears also. So what that speed limit detection gives you. It actually doesn't happen on the server. This is also a little bit, I think, pretty interesting. Is it happens at 40, 50 frames per second on the client. So we built the computer vision library right into the clients on the Android and the iOS clients, and the detection happens in real time. So what happens if a speed sign is detected? It could and it will also warn you if you're speeding, for example. So it helps with you driving more safely as well. And this is, I think, unique to OpenStreetView. To do this in real time has been a pretty huge accomplishment, and I'm pretty happy about that we can do that. And to the right, you see a little bit of a preview of what I was hoping to show you a little bit more of, but because we don't have our own computers here, we have to do that kind of here at the table if you're interested. This is a map editor that we're developing and we're testing currently internally, and we're hoping to release in a few months, which basically loads a trip. You see basically the slider that shows the entire trip, and there in the bottom, what you see is the locations where signs have been detected. So you can quickly jump through those, and then we'll actually retrieve the current value from OSM for the speed limits, and you can quickly apply the new speed limit to OSM if you want to. So this would help to much more efficiently kind of map the speed limits that have been detected. And to the left, you see an overview of like the little thumbnails of or basically the crop of the image that shows where the sign was detected, so you can quickly see if we messed it up, which happens. So this is a little bit of the kind of the under the hood vision of how that computer vision works and how it distinguishes road from the rest, and how we're looking at not only detecting signs but also kind of the road geometry and how it curves, which is not so much interesting perhaps for OSM directly, at least not in its current form, but it's definitely interesting for kind of more higher resolution mapping where you depend on maps for semi-autonomous driving and stuff like that. So that's where it gets interesting. Me?
Yeah,
Me? Who has heard about this OBD2 port in their cars? Who owns a car here? I mean, like I only have bought my first car when I moved to the United States, pretty much, except for a clunker that I owned in Amsterdam for a couple of years. But so every car, pretty much, if it's not very, very old, will have a port like this. It's usually by your knees, if you're in the driver's seat, by your left knee, somewhere by the fuse box. Sometimes it's covered by a panel. And this is basically a diagnostics port. So what it does is it reads out all kinds of values from the car as it moves. So it reads current gas consumption, speed, all kinds of engine metrics. But also the current curve, the current curve of the steering wheel, basically. And some of this information is useful for enhancing the accuracy of the GPS. Everybody knows that phone GPSs are not the most accurate ones, and with the help of the speed information as well as the curve of the current curve of the car, the current steering curve, we can enhance the accuracy of that signal and do better map matching, but also we can use dead reckoning to continue the trip if the GPS signal is lost altogether. So think about driving through a tunnel, think about driving in a dense inner city area where GPS is poor or tree coverage, and this will then help to maintain a good trip signal and a good trace for your OSV trip. So here's what that shows. Here someone's driving through a tunnel. I covered the bird poop on the window with the thing. You see the non-enhanced trace is in kind of purple pink, and then the enhanced trace with OBD2, where it just follows the tunnel pretty much exactly, is on the right. So this is a tunnel in Berlin, and the GPS trace is just lost, and it goes straight and to where it picks up again. Whereas the OBD2 enhanced trace follows the entire thing pretty much exactly. So that's the kind of benefit that you get from that, and I think that's a pretty significant one, especially if you think about there's quite a few locations where a more accurate signal is really helpful, not only in tunnels but also in places where roads are very close together. So map matching becomes very ambiguous. So any increase in accuracy that you can achieve is going to be helpful to have better map matching and being able to definitively tie OSV imagery to individual OSM ways. So the app supports both Wi-Fi and Bluetooth low energy dongles, so not the regular Bluetooth ones if you want to go out and buy one today. So look for a Bluetooth low energy one. Those are more expensive than the regular Bluetooth ones. The Wi-Fi ones have sometimes the disadvantage that that you have to maintain. If you want to maintain internet connectivity, you might have to perform some tricks to do that. But this is the one that I use myself, and that works very well. On the OSM wiki, we started a page to have to list out compatible models that we have tested and that the users have tested. Let me give it to Alex now.
Okay, so a few words about the open source activity. We released all the code about a month ago at the State of the Map US. So this is where the code is. It's PDF messed up the link, but you can get it. So it's github.com/OpenStreetView, and what you'll find there is the iOS app, Android app, all the code of the website, JOSM plugin, upload tool, and the scripts for upload. Those are some Python scripts. Martijn will mention about those later, and the map editor tool that Martijn showed, and we'll try to do some demo, but we can't connect our computer to this thing, so we'll see how that goes. So yeah, basically it's all there. We have over 90 issues that were reported by people and OSV users, which is great. We try to maintain an active conversation there. We had 14 forks of just combined. So we're quite happy with that. We definitely encourage you guys to go there and I don't know, check out the code, tell us things. We definitely encourage contributions, just like some suggestions that are easy to do for some people. So we're looking into translating the apps. We don't have a lot of resources right now internally to do translations in all the languages, but we know that OSM people are everywhere, so we encourage this translation thing. We're actually looking for someone who can convert the upload tool to Linux. It's a Qt tool, so if anyone knows Qt, we're looking forward to a conversation. We now have Windows and Mac. And of course, any crazy ideas that come to mind, we're there. We can talk. I'll have the next section of the presentation. I'll talk about the API that we're now releasing. It wasn't available until now, so I'll talk about that and see what you guys can build with that. We had so before State of the Map US, we had a beta program where, I don't know, maybe some of you joined. Martijn organized that whole thing. You want to tell a few words about?
Yeah, that's been very useful. I love beta programs. I love to take part in them, so I was excited to finally be able to organize one. So we had about 50 people from the OSM community. That some of them, because it wasn't public yet, I just reached out to folks that I knew, or folks that I knew would be interested based on knowing people in the OSM community. If you weren't part of that yet, it's not too late. If you want to. We'll continue it after now that we're launched. We're still continuing. It's a little bit quiet right now, just because we're focusing on catching up with all the issues that have been reported since we went public. But we'll be continuing to push new improvements there first in the future. So if you want to join that, I think we'll definitely take more people, as long as you're willing to live on the edge a little bit. And we did get a lot of feedback from that in terms of usability of the apps mainly, because we were focusing on the apps. That was the only user-facing part that we had, we made it much better because of that already. Oh yeah, so this workshop was called OpenStreetView for Mappers. So let's talk about those mapping tools a little bit. I would love to do a demo. That's not going to be possible just because we have to present from this thing here, but I have the things on my computer. The JOSM plugin you can download yourself already, of course. I'm just going to show some screenshots for those who haven't seen it yet. And then we have this map editor tool that I briefly mentioned and that I want to talk a little bit more about. So the JOSM plugin is basically you can see what it does here. So it's very rudimentary so far. So it's simple but works well. And we're hoping to present this as a start of basically what should this be looking like. Our main developer for that plugin, Bea, was presenting yesterday, and she's in the room here also. So I hope I don't mess up her work. It's basically discoverable through the JOSM plugin store, where you can download it like any other plugin. It doesn't have any dependencies that I know of in terms of other plugins. And then, yeah, what it does is basically what it says on the tin. It presents you with basically a cloud of existing images. What we don't do yet, for example, is clustering. So you see this whole mess of images. So it's only really useful if you zoom in pretty far. And you can select an individual image and display it for mapping purposes. You can do a couple filters, age filter for the images, as well as filter only your own images, because of course you love to map your own stuff first. It's a work in progress in the sense, like there's a few things that I definitely would like to see improved already, and that we're working on in the near future. So currently the JOSM layer needs to be, or the OpenStreetView layer needs to be the active layer for it to be selectable. So you need to switch layers quite a bit. This is an active discussion on GitHub already. People pointed this out, and I quickly discovered that I wanted that different also. Like I said, no trips, so there's just individual images, so you can't really easily skip to the next image. You have to click on it in the map view. No clustering, no aggregation, no sign integration yet. So we're really at the start of this, but it's definitely usable. So I invite you to download it. If you're a plugin developer, like anything, we very much welcome contributions, but we're very committed to also working it ourselves. And Bea loves this stuff. So we're definitely going to be working on it after we get back from Brussels. I'm going to pause for a moment and see if anyone has any questions so far. Dermot, I knew I could count on you. Just because it's 75 minutes, I don't want us to be talking all the time.
Sure. So I think it looks really good. I'm interested in two things. One of them really basic and simple. So the screenshots showed a lot of images of upright phones in portrait orientation. Was that for artistic purposes, or do you actually think that that's a good way to shoot this kind of imagery?
No, in the sense that it's not the idea. The best way to do it is just to have your camera in landscape mode. It is just for presentation purposes.
The real question, I think it's a particularly useful thing, this aggregation to the OSM ways. I punched the air a little when you said that, but I'm interested in a particular twist on that, because I guess these ways are constantly in refinement and the geometry can change. So in a case like that, what do you trust? Do you do a one-time snap of the image to a way and then it moves with the way, or if the way moves, will you reevaluate where it maybe belongs?
Is this yeah, it's working. So what we do is periodically update all the matching. So it's not like daily, but it's not one time. So we do kind of like about once every 2 weeks, once every 3 weeks. So it's pretty accurate.
About the same topic, can I flag images not to be matched to array because they aren't along array?
You can go first.
We automatically detect what belongs to an OSM way and what not. So if something is not matchable, we'll just leave it raw. So we kind of do that automatically right now. I know it's not 100% process, so I think it's actually a good idea to have something like that to match, to flag that, okay, this is not matched, but we don't currently do that.
Yeah, no, it's definitely something that was mentioned a few times already by users who are, especially users who are biking and saw their traces matched to roads that are kind of on either side of a separated bike path. because we don't match to bike paths, but only to navigable, what we call navigable roads. So there's definitely some tuning to be done there. It's and maybe even an option to not match if you choose not to. To make that user selectable is something that I've been thinking about and that we might consider also. So yeah, work in progress.
I was looking at OpenStreetView in San Francisco since it opens there, and I saw a whole lot of pictures upside down. Are you working on detecting whether or not they're upside down?
So yeah, in San Francisco mostly we've noticed that. So what happened is that we have those pictures come from older builds that had some problems. We're working on that. For those pictures we'll have to manually rotate them, but so if anyone wants to rotate photos, you can do that on our website. Go to San Francisco. But yeah, that bug was fixed, but we have the pictures, so we'll have to rotate them manually actually.
Very quickly, one, how about privacy? Do you blur faces, license plates, and so on? And second, what do you do in traffic jams? Is the app automatically detecting and pausing from capturing additional images in the same spot?
Okay, blurring, yes. We currently do faces and license plates. So this is hard to get completely right, and we do have also false positives where we blur valuable things. So this is something that needs tweaking still, and as we get more data, this will get better because we learn from the stuff that is not yet working correctly. So it's also dependent on people flagging the false positives in the end, which is something that we're working on also. In terms of traffic, I think what you're asking was whether we prevent the camera from taking too many images when you're going slow. Yeah, no, it's all the interval is all speed and distance dependent. So as you go slower, it will slow down the frequency also. So there's not going to be, if you're at a standstill or you're stop and go traffic, then there will still be a good regular frequency in terms of space of the images taken with the app.
Okay, are there any other questions to know?
There's also opportunity later. I mean, we have more stuff to do. I just wanted to have a break. If you want to do one more, I can do that.
Okay.
Will the Android app also be available on F-Droid?
Yes, this is something that we've been looking into, and I think you might be able to take that more.
We definitely want to upload it on F-Droid. The problem right now is that we have to clean up a little bit because you have to have all the code open source there, and we have some like binaries for crash reporting, for like third-party tools that we use that are not core to OpenStreetView. So we have to clean that up a little bit and then upload to F-Droid. This is definitely something that we want to do. In the meantime, you can install the APK directly.
Cool. More time for questions later, for sure. I just wanted to break it up a little bit. So the upload tools, so some of you, myself included, like to put action cameras on their cars or bikes and take images that way. I have a GoPro, and you can set it to take an image every second, and you can kind of store a bunch until the battery runs out, which is annoyingly fast on a GoPro camera. But a lot of people do this, and we wanted to have tools for that. So we have a couple things. We have some Python scripts that you can use if you're a command line person. Those are fairly straightforward to use. All the images that really only need lat long, they don't need direction. So we compute that from the sequence. So those have gone through some iterations of improvements based on feedback already, and the place to give that feedback is, of course, again on the GitHub repository, where you can also download them. Another thing that we had a few interns working on this for a while is a graphical upload tool that currently is compiled for Windows and Mac, but I actually tried my hand at compiling it for. Did you see that? I tried my hand at compiling it for Linux, and it almost works. It almost. So we need someone who just has a little bit more experience in compiling a Qt app for Linux. So I got it to work, but the authentication is kind of messed up. So we're very close. I know that there's a lot of Linux users here, and I'm in spite of this thing, I'm a pretty experienced Linux user myself. But what this does, back on topic, what this does is you basically drop a folder of images. It can be huge, it can be small, and you have to authenticate with OSM once, because all the authentication for OpenStreetView goes through OSM, OAuth. So there's no separate account for OpenStreetView. Of course, we create an account, but there's no separate login credentials. So it's tied to your OSM account. And all the information that we store about you is just the information that's publicly available through OSM as well. So yeah, that's a little bit on that as a sideline. And basically, yeah, from there on, it's very simple. You just click Start Upload, and you wait for that progress bar to reach 100%, and then it's done. Right now, it's like there's a few kind of dev-e items there, so like you can upload to a staging and a test server. That is probably not going to be very useful for many people, but this is going to be kind of a more a simpler way to upload a lot of images for a lot of people. So we hope that's going to be useful. So then something I already mentioned a little bit is the OpenStreetView editor, which is currently in an internal alpha mode that we hope to expand on. And release to the public. This is also a Qt tool, so it should be. It already is tested on Mac and Windows, but theoretically should be available. Should be able to make it available on Linux as well. What it does, what it is basically, is it's an efficient workflow to map stuff detected during your own drive. So it's really focused on kind of your own. Processing your own trips mainly at first. So here you see the screen as it presents itself when you start up. So it's on the left basically a list of trips with some metrics about those trips, how many images are there, and then on the right you'll see a map that highlights those trips as you hover over them. Then if you go into trip detail. What it will show is basically a few panes of information. On the bottom is the trip slider. So this is just basically a slider that lets you navigate the sequence of images. It takes initially a while to load right now because it preloads all the images and then caches them locally. And then at the same time it loads the detection metadata as well. So what you see here is, at the bottom is the detected sign, speed limit signs. Right now it's just speed limits. And then on the right you see a little map to give you some spatial context as well. And then on the left here, these correspond to all the detections here. So you can click on any of these, and the trip slider will scroll to match the speed limit sign there. And then in the background, what JOSM will do, if you have JOSM open, JOSM will automatically move to that location and load the way that it is that this particular speed limit sign was detected for. So this will help you kind of quickly get started mapping the speed limit, and in the future also other things. Another feature of that we have right now is in the background it will also load the current speed limit as it is mapped in OSM. So you can quickly see to the right, well there's nothing selected right now, but to the right you would see the OpenStreetView detected speed limit, and then on the left you would see the OSM way, the speed limit for the OSM way as it is currently mapped. So if those are different, then you would see a little warning sign, and you would quickly be able to kind of act on that and modify the speed limit. Oh, and then at the top there's a series of things that allow you to manually add a speed limit detection, manually add what is it, blurring? Not yet, right?
Not yet.
Okay. Yeah, just the speed limit. So that's what we have right now. There, in the future, we hope to do more manual adding and perhaps even removing for your own images, blurring and detections. So right now, this is like I said, this is in alpha form. I have a somewhat working version on my computer. So if you want to have a closer look, then we can do that later. So this is basically the workflow. So you select it, you say apply change, and then it will go to JOSM and it will automatically create that change for you. So you can quickly map. Of course, you have to be careful that a speed limit is valid until there's the next speed limit sign. So you have to make sure that there's also the ways after that are mapped, and you still have to take care of that yourself. So now I'm going to give it over to Alex to talk a little bit about the API.
Okay. Yeah, we'll have to switch to some HTML. Yeah, it's working. It's a little bit messed up, but we can live with this. Okay, this is actually the API that we're using internally as well for the apps and the tools. And just like as a disclosure, this is like the beta version of the API. We kind of did this as we did the apps and the website and all that. So we know about a few inconsistencies here and there, and we are working on improving them. But we just like prefer to make it available early and then do the 2.0 version as soon as we can. Okay, so this is the documentation. I'll quickly go through it. We have two sections of like how it works with the main things that you do with the API, like how to display data on the map and then how to upload. So for displaying, you can do two things actually. You can display. Like you have a map, you can display either the things that we display on the website, like the ways that are mapped, or you can display, like you saw in the JOSM plugin, like the exact points where photos were taken. So there are two APIs for that, the two methods, like the tracks and the nearby photos. So these two, just like a quick mention, you can. We'll give this HTML to you guys, so you can just click here and it goes to the exact details of the method. So it's quite exhaustive. You can see all the parameters there. So the tracks gives you the list of ways that are covered in a specific bounding box that you send. The photos. Same thing, but gives you like lat longs for each photo that was taken in a specific bounding box. Then what happens is that you usually click on the map to see the exact sequences that go through there, and then you call the nearby tracks, which for a lat long gives you all the sequences that have an image at that specific location, and you can also set like a radius to search in. So this is for the displaying part. For the upload part, so yeah, as the API is called, you can upload images like JPEG files, geotag JPEG files, or you can upload videos. As we mentioned in the compression thing about the apps, we compress the imagery that we record with the apps in a video file. So it's not like 23 frames per second, but it's an MP4 that will get split. So you can upload, so first of all, you'll have to call the API for creating a new sequence, and this will return an ID that you'll use on the next APIs to tell us on which sequence you want to upload. then you call either the video or the photo API. So if you have video files that are geotagged, you use this API, but like every video file is an MP4 and it has to have like a metadata file because the MP4 doesn't have those. Like if you know JPEG, JPEG has EXIF headers where you set the lat long of the picture. MP4 doesn't have that, for of course for obvious reasons. So there's a metadata file format that we document that tell us, okay, at this frame, this you have this location. The photo API is, yeah, so you set like a coordinate, like the GPS accuracy. These are optional actually, but lat long is the most important. So this uploads a photo at a specific index on a specific sequence, so that you know what's there. Then when everything's done, you just tell us, okay, we're done uploading to this sequence, and then we start to do the processing part, like the blurring thing, or optionally the video splitting, where we split the videos to individual JPEG files. So yeah, this is pretty much it about the upload part. One thing that I'd mention here is authentication. So some of the APIs, mostly like the display part, works without any authentication. You can display everything basically. But if you want to upload, for example, or do other things that I'll mention, you need to authenticate. On OpenStreetView, we use OpenStreetmap Authentication, so you have to have an OSM account to do it. And basically, you do the authentication on OSM. You send to OSM like a request token and a secret token. Then you send those to OSV, and we give you an access token that you'll use for all the further APIs. Sorry if I got a little bit too technical, but it's a workshop, right? Yeah, so I think it's all in here. Like this is the how-to part. These are broken down for each kind of each type of operation you can work with. But I mentioned this in the how-to. For the user, yeah, you can only get the user details. Yeah, so I guess this is pretty much it with the API. So again, this is the first time we're releasing this. For now, as I said, it's not done yet completely. I think you've noticed some inconsistencies if you guys know APIs. We're working on that. We will make this available to you on demand. So at this point, I should probably open the. How do you need to know like Dutch to start this? Okay. So if you want to use the API, just drop us an email at hello@openstreetview.org and tell us about your idea, just a couple of lines, and we'll send you this HTML file. So the reason why we're not adding this to the website now is because we want to do the 2.0 version first. But if you guys want early access, we can definitely provide that.
Okay, yeah. So plans for the near future, apart from everything that we already said we are going to in front of it. So rapid release cycles, I think I mentioned that every 2 weeks we'll have new versions of the apps. The website will have continued improvements as well. The apps are the main focus, at least for user-facing part. The JOSM plugin is going to be important as well. We also hope to attract some community at least feedback at the very least, but also help with that, because I know there's a ton of really skilled JOSM plugin developers in this, maybe even in this crowd. So we'd love your help, but we continue to work on that. One of the bigger things is the support for full 360-degree imagery with ever more popular 360-degree cameras like that Ricoh Theta camera that is displayed there in the corner. So those things are getting fairly cheap now, not cheap, but fairly cheap, and they're of course ideal for this kind of stuff. Having 360-degree imagery is going to be game-changing, I think, because right now I know people who have camera rigs that consist of 4 or 6 cameras on their cars, and creating street-level imagery with that. Those things, it's pretty cool. I've tried it myself with 2 cameras, but it gets expensive, and it's also it's not very easy to get started with. So these things are going to get. I mean, right now they're still fairly crappy, but because the resolution is just low and the sharpness of the images is not great. So we're kind of it's a throwback to an earlier era of cameras in a way, but they'll get better really soon, I'm sure. So those cameras are going to be very valuable to this kind of work. So we want to be able to support that as soon as possible. And then more detections like lanes, different kinds of signs. We're hoping for input from you guys as well for this. What is useful to detect and what is reasonable to detect. So those are some of the near future plans. So how to get started? I think by now you probably already know how to get started. The apps are available for download or source code download or APK download. You can sign up for a booth. I think there is still gifts actually. We have some of those crazy little cars that you can take with you, and I don't think a camera would fit on them, but they're fun to kind of drive around the living room. And then go to openstreetview.org, log in. You don't have to create an account. You can just log in again through OSM with the website, through the website or through the app. It doesn't really matter. You just have to authenticate once through OSM and you're all set. So it's that simple, and just start driving or biking or walking around for that matter. It doesn't really matter. Like OpenStreetView is pretty much, that's one thing perhaps we didn't mention is like we're building this very much with kind of driving in mind, but it doesn't really preclude any other use cases. If you want to bike or if you want to walk, you can manually force taking an image by tapping on the screen. So it's really, you can use it for whatever purpose you want to use it for. We are kind of focused because we're a navigation company, so we're kind of we're always thinking about cars. But having lived in Amsterdam for 20 years, I know that's not all there is. So use it for whatever you want. Really, is my message. I think this is pretty much the last slide, which leaves us a nice little chunk of time for more questions and discussion. Yeah, we have like 10 minutes. There's a good chunk of questions here. So, can you go around with the mic? Oh, and again, thanks for getting up at 9 in the morning to be here.
You already mentioned that you're very car focused, but are you considering to add like a bike modus or a walk modus where it will snap to bike path or sidewalks instead of normal roads?
Right, so there are like multiple angles. One is matching, so that you match on proper roads, proper ways, and then there's also the interval where you take photos, right? So you have to do these both things. We're currently working on the matching part to have proper matching for bike paths and pedestrian paths, and we're for the latter, it's not that difficult. So we'll do that, I think, even shortly, to have like the other modes. But again, you can do that today, like with a bike or walking. It's just a matter of like the interval where you take photos is not entirely focused on cars. So if you're walking slowly, it will take a photo every like 5 meters. That's also in the car. So it's okay for biking and pedestrian, but we'll have to propagate this nicely into the user interface, I agree.
Is there anything for indicating a point of interest and maybe recording a snatch of audio so you can say you've seen something? Like, for example, one of the things I want to start getting is gas pipeline markers, where you see a white and red post beside the road, because there's lots of those in my area. So I'd like to be able to say I've seen one, so I can go back to that quickly on the track.
I think it's. I don't think we have considered audio notes yet.
No,
I think it's an interesting idea. I'm going to take that with us to consider. It's not something that's on our radar yet, but I do think it's an interesting suggestion that would kind of enhance the usability for some things. So yeah, I like the idea. Huh. Thanks.
Hi, will there be a fully automated workflow in the future? Because I noticed myself, I don't have a lot of time to do a manual upload. I use Mapillary a lot. And it takes a lot of photos, also lots of them not usable, but some of them are, like max speed signs, maximum speed signs. That's the one. Well, they can differ for something like 500 meters, 600 meters, and I would like to have sort of fully automated workflow that the app automatically updates OpenStreetMap.
So the vision is definitely to go to that path, to automatize what we can do, right? We're in a state where, like, we started this, the vision is to get there, but we just take it step by step. So first step is just detect with a certain amount of, what's the word? Like confidence. And after a certain level of confidence, we display that in the UI for the human to review. But if, like, we'll get more data and we'll train the algorithms to do better, and then we can go to like an automatic workflow in the future. So that's the vision. We just made the first step.
Let me add something to that real quick. I think, yeah, so as much as we would like to go fully automatic, I think there always has to be a human component to it, at least for the foreseeable future. I don't like as much as we can train these machines to do stuff for us. I do think it will remain challenging to kind of fully automate it. Also because kind of mapping in OSM is it's not always an exact science. So often it is, but not always. There's I guess what I'm saying is just in so many in the mapping that I've done based on OpenStreetView, I've seen so many things where it didn't quite match up. Didn't quite match up to reality, and I hear that a lot from the folks who map in our within Telenav as well that are using this stuff. That there's just a lot of exceptions where the map matching doesn't quite work out, where the speed limit is. Well, there's a lot of, for example, like temporary restrictions on speeds. There's speed limits that are attached to school zones or whatever. So there's just a lot of real life that comes into play, is what I'm saying. And I think there's always going to be some kind of human component to resolving that. But we can get pretty far with automation, and that's kind of I think that's what the map editor is showing, that we can do like 80 to 90% of the work for you. Does that sound that we're like good enough?
I'm using the moment, but I think some parts can be fully automated, some other parts are not.
Like the school zones, well, they should be there in OpenStreetMap, I think. And like I said, well, sometimes max speed signs change around, especially in the Netherlands where I live, and they're changed, for example, like 500-600 meters, like on motorways. That can be easily fully automated. Some other things are, I think, much more difficult.
Yeah, agreed.
Two questions. One, car technology, one about map matching.
It's on. Yeah, it's on.
Okay, it does work. One of the OBD2 plugs, do you know if I can put two of them into my car? Okay, so it's one car, one.
There's only one plug in the car, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Oh, my car has two, actually.
Really?
I found another one in my car after some searching, so you might get lucky. Why would you want to have two?
I have one application I'm a beta tester for, Tankthaler in Germany. And on the other hand, I would try to use yours. Anyway, the other question for me much more important. What do you with map matching in very sparsely mapped areas? Like, for example, when I go to vacation to Turkey, I visit the places I go up in, and there's nearly zero roads. There I could take pictures, but you would not be able to map match until weeks later, maybe.
Right, so I have two answers, what the specs say and what it's implemented, actually. So the specs say that if you're out of mapped, like a mapped road, we'll just keep all the raw positions so that you can go through them exactly as they come from the GPS. So that's also like a good tool to add roads, I'd say. It's not fully there, so we have a few bugs there, but we're hoping to fix those. But yeah, like the answer is how it will work is that you'll have just like the raw GPS positions, and if you have multiple passes, it would look like the red polylines that I showed in that slide where you don't have any matching.
Thank you. Is it somehow envisage any usage of OpenStreetView during emergencies? So, for example, for in supporting damage grading, damage analysis from remote sensing, or for validate analysis that has been performed through satellite imagery. I think specifically in regard with the previous comment that could be helpful in that case to have the possibility to add POIs or the detection of some features during the acquisition, and also possibly having some editors that is dedicated to detect this kind of situation, maybe visualizing a pre and post image.
Right. I guess, so as far as the OSV platform itself is concerned, I think there's nothing that stands in its way to use it for that purpose. But if you go into very specific needs in terms of specific detections that are maybe not useful for the general public, I think that's where the open source part of it comes into play. If it doesn't do what you want it to do, you can make it want to do what you do. I mean, that can be a very unsatisfactory answer because that requires work. But like we try and supply a platform that works for like the general use case of OpenStreetMap mapping, of like the features that we feel are very useful to a lot of people using OpenStreetMap data. If you get into more specific use cases, then I think the platform can be made to support those. They won't do it out of the box, but it being open would allow you to kind of build your own. There's nothing that would stand in that way specifically. So, yeah, I would really like to see OpenStreetView evolve into something like that, where it gets all these kind of niches that are where it's used in for things that kind of we haven't imagined. I mean, we're trying to build something generic that is a very useful base, and then hoping that people use it for all kinds of things. So I think your idea is as good one as any, and I would love to see that happen. So yeah.
Other questions? Yeah.
A student, I take the same road to work and back every day, and I upload a stream every day as well. How do you process and combine all these data? Do you keep it as separate streams, or do you merge it together somehow?
In terms of like visuals on the website or on the apps, you'll see just one line because we aggregate all the. I mean, there's a street in Cluj where there are 250 passes, right? So on the visually you'll see just one line, but when you click on it, you'll see all these separate sequences. So at the logic level, they're separate. So it's just like one sequence each time in the database and in like the file system.
We just have time for one more question. Yeah.
You mentioned 360 cameras, but do you also support traditional sequentially taken panoramas? And will the direction encoding be correct on them if I only turn the camera and don't move?
Right, so this will come into place when we add support for the 360. So it's kind of like a subset of that, right? Having panoramas. So now we'll start working on the general visualization thing where you pan around the image and you can go all the way. So once we have that, panoramas will fall into the same like workflow. So we'll support those when we support the 360 basically.
Okay, thanks Alex and Martijn for this nice talk.